Hello, everybody. Andy here from Glass Half Dead, the number one kill team channel on YouTube, and of course, you are aware of literally any other channel on YouTube. So, hey, we've got the new balanced data slate for the upcoming World Tournament, which is next week, 5th, I think, right? Which is super cool, obviously. And I thought everybody's already covered that 2 weeks ago. However, Warcom has given us an article, and there's actually some very interesting things in this article. So I thought I'd read it out to you so that we can all see why they did what they did. Because it's very nice in these articles, if you haven't read them before, they do actually explain their thinking behind it. Now, in fairness, the thinking is normally just they perform good, we no want, which is fine. That's a good reason. Um, but there was actually something very interesting, which unfortunately doesn't happen till the end because they start by telling us all the buffs and then they tell us all the nerfs. But I want to point out now, before we get to it, that because it kind of talks a little bit to something that I didn't think could be done, which is almost, we would normally term it an emergency nerf when it comes to Canoptek Circle and Deathwatch. And we get to that when we get to that. Okay. With that said, I'm also going to, since we've known about these for 2 weeks now, we can obviously always give a little bit more of a considered appraisal of what the changes they've made. So with that said, Layla is one of the kill team, works alongside Elliot. And yeah, I've met them both. They're lovely people. Let's read it. So we don't need to know that. Let's get into the changes. Right. Affecting all teams is the... Oh, wait. Have they talked about... No. Okay. So one thing they don't talk about here, which I totally understand why, is they didn't talk about one of their big changes, which was obviously changing Volcus doors to both be consistent with each other, which is actually a super nice quality of life improvement. Good. Nice. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Affecting all teams is the change to the smoke grenade universal equipment option. Combining the powerful obscuring rule with total removal of the piercing weapon rule was always a strong option, but it gave a particularly outsized advantage to low operative durable kill teams who could use it to avoid their natural weakness, piercing weapons. To mitigate this, smoke. Yeah, cool. This makes sense. I don't think there's a negative to this. They've just nerfed the smoke grenade a bit, but obscuring is still incredibly strong. And in fairness, most teams that could provide some sort of anti-obscuring couldn't do it with piercing weapons. They normally had devastating weapons that could do it. That's not really that big of a deal, but cool. That said, one elite kill team was struggling in the last quarter. After reducing the oppressive dueler chapter tactic of the Angels of Death, it became clear that their other options for this rule weren't pulling quite enough weight. So many have received additional benefits to make their impact on the table more significant. So that is exactly what they did. And I've got to be honest, I don't. So, Dueler was the definition of a toxic rule, unfortunately. But the little buffs they gave them, I don't think moved the needle enough for AOD. Not that I'm saying AOD are bad. To be clear, I'm not saying AOD need a buff. That's for somebody else to decide. But I just think that AOD, if they were aiming to kind of push them up a tier, I don't think the little tweaks they gave them does that at all. They've given them tiny touches, but from what we can guess by how few people are now playing them in tournaments, they maybe need a little bit more. Especially when you see what they're now up against, not just mechanically in the Deathwatch, but thematically. AOD are kind of sucky. Like they're just generic dudes, but Deathwatch are super cool. And the 5-man compared to the 6-man just outright says we are better. I think they need a little something else, but it doesn't have to be the chapter tactics that get buffed, although that's an easy way to do it. I think there may be another way to buff them in another way that gives, no matter what they pick, just that little tweak up would be good. Cool. Right. But, they have identified it correctly. AOD sucked without Dueler. So cool. Right. I think another issue, sorry, for AOD is to find out whether or not they're too good or too bad is really, really difficult now, because competitive players were running them because Dueler made them incredibly effective into certain matchups, too strong into certain matchups. But now they don't have Dueler. Even if AOD get buffed to the point that they are good enough, the top players aren't going to be playing them. So yeah, now you've got to ask, you know, do you balance by the top players, by the middle, etc., etc.? Who knows? But of course, before we get onto Kassakin, which are a very important team to talk about, I would like to give a subscriber-only benefit, and that subscriber-only benefit is a big double hello. Wow, so wholesome, truly the wholesome knows no bounds of the world of Glass Half Dead. Hey, I have loads of affiliate links for like kill team equipment and all that good stuff. And if you just want to buy Warhammer ever, use somebody's affiliate link before you buy it. Cost you nothing. They get a little kickback. If you want to use my link, that'd be super cool. I have Element Games, Whaling Games, Red October Games in the UK, Wargame Portal in the US. Okay, let's carry on. Kassakin kill teams have also consistently struggled to remain within a healthy win rate. That is very true. Kassakin have not done well this edition. To support KD's heroes, 3 of their firefight ploys have been reworked to provide much more consistent threats in the kill zone, reduce the requirements for their use, or better work with the new approved Ops 25 initiative card system. Yeah, they have. So I think one of the issues with Kassakin is that, and I said this last time, I've played Kassakin once this edition, I think. It was in a battle report even, which you can find into Nemesis Claw. And I'm not saying they're like terrible. They're in line, like they're fine. They're within that 45 to 55 zone roughly. And they do need some buffs for sure. But putting everything onto like one thing, the recon guy, is a bit meh. I guess. I don't know. That's all my thoughts on them. Although I do like that they've made some of their ploys easier to use, which is good. The Scout Squad kill team, conversely, was seeing more difficulty with their strategy ploys. Their previous ploys were simply too limited in their effectiveness, and making an impact with them required using too many command points for each option. That is true, yes. Now, their Gunfire Ambush and Blade Ambush ploys have been combined into one new ambush ploy, which I like. I think that was a good decision, letting you choose between shooting and melee once the action has started. It allows them to be a little bit more flexible in what they bring to the table and what gets buffed. But really, Scouts are a tough team because of how they get all their buffs on the turn they go loud, which means turn 2. So if you don't smash turn 2, you're just stood there doing nothing. The new adaptable training ploy allows you to swap the orders of multiple operatives to get them back to safety, while stealth relocation now allows a greater number of operatives to move in the strategy phase. So obviously that there is kind of saying like, hey, we know they're a turn 2 team. I guess you can spend more command points to make them a turn 2.5 team as well, which is fair. So other kill teams were simply overperforming. So here they're going to talk about Canoptek, Circle, and Deathwatch. Other kill teams were simply overperforming the last quarter to such an extent that we could expect them to thrive with a new environment as well. So what they mean is they were performing well before the new approved ops. Okay. Amongst those with reductions, they mean nerfs, but they've said reductions, I suppose, are the new kill teams from Toonbow, Canoptek, Circle, and Deathwatch. These changes from their dossier bring them in line with the current version of the game, applying principles from the previous balance updates to the new teams like reducing healing, damage reduction, and restricting 4 APO activations. So, we'll stop here for a brief moment to have a chat about what this means for balances and nerfs and such. So, in general, GW, Kill Team, screw the rest of GW, I don't know. Kill Team likes to release teams, and then about 3 months after that, 2.5 months after the box drops, they will do a buff nerf patch, and that will affect neither of the 2 new teams that everyone is currently getting used to for the last 2 months. Then 3 months later, we get another balance patch, and that balance patch is the one that will nerf or buff the 2 teams that released 5 months ago, okay? The common thinking for this is that they do it because you have to let teams settle in. You have to let people do their hobby before they get them to the table. So even though it's been 2 months from the day the box releases till the day the balance patch drops, we can also assume that they probably have to have like a month at least of like translation and the the work is done, so they probably have a month to figure out, is this team too good or too bad? Um, and during that month, people just aren't playing them really. Like maybe like some very, very small amounts of people are playing them due to hobbies. And the people that are playing them are probably very dedicated to playing the game, and therefore we can assume that what they're doing is skewing the numbers just of the fact that these are the people that are playing them so early. But then also the fact I've lost my train of thought. So that's interesting that they've kind of said here that's not how we have to do it. We can know this team's too strong, and even though it hasn't been 5 months since the box dropped, we're doing this now because we know. Because they actively say they did perform too well. Normally they would, yeah. There you go. Interesting. I thought just interesting. Now I will say the also. So they said they brought them in line. So they've said two things here. They've said the teams were overperforming. Additionally, we've brought them in line. These are two different things. So I understand this is just some word salad. You got to do a Warcom article, throw some stuff at the wall. You got to explain why you've done these things. Fine, and you can't talk how normal people talk because it's a corporate thing. Fine, I do understand that, but the Deathwatch thing that wasn't like they got one change, which was to their demolisher can't stack his damage reduction. Cool, that's fine. That does not affect the team in any way, shape, or form. Nobody's even taking the demolisher. Let's be honest. Hitting on fours just isn't good enough for a 5 model team. You cannot fluff. So with that in mind, logically, they're still going to overperform. They made a change that means nothing for Deathwatch. However, we then have, of course, Canoptek Circle, and they did. It's just a little bit of an interesting one. Like they've talked about bringing them in line, but it's like, what do you mean? That kind of implies that when they wrote the team, who knows when, 5 years ago, right? Ages ago, that they felt that, you know, having crazy medics, big damage they don't have damage reduction, and 4 APO activations was fine then, but not now. That doesn't make any sense either. Again, word salad, for their reasoning here, but I think another interesting thing is that I've seen quite a few people say that the nerf Canoptek Circle got was quite big. I was like, "No, what?" Maybe perhaps like they had the best medic in the game, and they just made that medic still the best medic in the game, but can't do it twice. Okay, fine, still the best medic in the game. Cool. And then not being able to make a 3 APL guy go to a 4 APL, that is very in line, I think. So the only other people that could do that really were legionaries, where they could use Zinch to make their 3 APL guys 4 APL. No other, and this is very consistent. No other 3 APL team has a comms. Clearly, they have decided that they do not want 4 APL models in the game. And this does kind of hammer home that point. They've decided 4 APL doesn't work. Of course, they've made that point until they get a 3 APL team that underperforms, and they will give it 4 APL, right? Fine. I don't think 4 APL inherently is bad. There you go. So that's an interesting set of changes there that have happened significantly earlier than expected. I don't think the nerfs to Canoptek are going to affect most people. I think if you're currently winning with the Canoptek, and you're not like, it might change how things work at Worlds, where people are significant, like among the top 20 in the world or something, where the small, minute changes actually matter. Maybe this is, a nerf that matters. But everybody else, this is zero change. There you go. Sorry, it's clearly a change. I'm talking hyperbolically. It is obviously a change. There will be times where it's like, oh, you can't just automatically fully heal 2 people. How strange. No. But there you go. Right. It is a nerf. I just don't think it is such a nerf that we won't still see Canoptek dominating. Warp Calvin. So Warp Calvin got a very interesting nerf. Let's see what they say about it. Warp Coven has had a near uncontested position of strength this edition. Year and a half. 2 years? How long have we been going? It's a year and a half? It's a year. I've forgotten how time works. Let's say a year and a half. Screw it. It's at least a year. The newer super elite 5 operative kill team builds a better archetype for the team rather than trying to continue to reign in the unstoppable sorcerers of the Thousand Suns. So the operative count has gone down by 1. Though you can still take plenty of Zangors if you'd like to keep those high activation counts. So I think this is a really nice change for Warp Coven because thematically it means you're very strong. You get to be a 5 model team instead of a 6 model team. I think that's a great bit of theme to give the team. So you're saying that, hey, when you're rocking 3 sorcerers, you're the same power level as Deathwatch, not just normal Marines. So thematically, really cool. However, I fully understand that a lot of Warp Coven players are very unhappy about this because you didn't get buffed, you just got nerfed. So if you're already at like 50-50 win rate because you're not smashing on the top tables of worlds, you're an average player, you're like, but I already lose games. I know that everybody talks about Warp Coven being strong, but I haven't felt that myself. I've lost plenty of games and now I have less, which I do understand the frustration when your team gets nerfed. But genuinely, I think this is a good change because, sure, you can. Warp Coven were beatable, but if you just, as they say, if you look at their win rate for an entire year, they have been the top team in essence. In overall win rate for the last year and a half, they have been the top team in the game. So that is something that had to be addressed. I think it's insane that it took them this long to address it, and I genuinely don't know why it did. Because it was clear from day one, Worlds last year, or it has been a year, Warp Coven dominated. Top players came away from Worlds saying, I do not like the game. The state of the game is broken right now. This is a year ago. Because elites just don't work in the rest of the game, especially on Into the Dark. Cool. We then get Sanctifiers. Sanctifiers have had an undeniable level of strength since their introduction to the game. Okay. Their flexible mobility and durability has made it difficult for their opponents. As such, the Ministorum's Sermon now only affects higher damage attacks, meaning smaller weapons are more likely to injure the team. The individual operative quality has also been brought down with specific strengths of the Confessor, Preacher, and Salvationist operatives most directly targeted. Cool. So I don't really know much about Sanctifiers, so I can look at these and say, oh yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. I don't think... I've heard that these nerfs are quite significant. Who knows? There you go. I suspect they are and they will be, but I had not ever played against a high-level Sanctifiers player, so I don't really know if these are the specific things that needed to be targeted. I can look at these and say, like, oh yeah, that is, it makes sense to lower their damage reduction. But if you're a Chad like me and you only play elites, bro, I'm still fully damage reduction. There's no change there. I assume it just makes... because didn't they used to be, if it's... Wasn't it, if it's... Was it just everything was damaged and now it's only 3? What in the game does 2 damage? Or is it now 3s go through, but 4s don't? Don't know. Nobody cares about Sanctifiers. Once they get nerfed, nobody will play them because people were only playing them because they were super OP. Hello, Circuit. The Necrons of the Hyrotech Circle have also had an oversized impact in the last quarter. So, Hyrotech, if you don't know, has generally been considered to be the best team in the game, despite the fact that its win rate is lower than Warp Coven, who is definitively the best team in the game. A lot of top players will say Hyrotech Circle are the actual best team in the game. Again, it's a little bit conflicting because Warp Coven are the best team in the game, but Hyrotech Circle have a great match into so many teams. So do Warp Coven. Anyway, moving on. People say things, who knows? So they had an oversized impact in the last quarter. That's an interesting way. They have an oversized impact for the last year, I think, but sure. The interaction between reanimation protocols and the kill op meant they were always playing a few points ahead of their opponent. To address this, high-tech circle operatives now count as a smaller team for the purposes of the kill op. Each operative incapacitated now counts for a full point in the kill op, making it much more achievable for opponents to score well. So I'm going to say it again. A lot of people that play high-tech circle, or just like to cry on Reddit, I suppose, have said that this high-tech circle team is now dead. And I agree that at the top tables, this is probably enough. Again, I mean, in the ultra elite world level, you know, you've made it to round 9 of LVO, then probably high-tech circle is now going to lose that match, right? But I think that in your average thing, your average game, right? High-tech circle were too strong. One of the reasons is you couldn't kill them. Couldn't score kill op. You couldn't score what's the word? Tac ops, seeker destroys, right? That kind of thing. They had brilliant ways of denying you your victory points just by rolling a d6, right? So what they've said in this paragraph is very correct. I do think they've said that you were always playing a few points ahead. In essence, your opponent was playing like, think of it this way. High-tech circle could play a full 4-round game. You got to play a 3-round game, and you had to hope that for any tac op or your kill op that required kills, you didn't need the points that could come from your 4th round, because in essence, you don't get it, right? That's kind of the way you can think of this. And so all they're doing is saying, hey, you get those points faster. This seems like a really solid change to me. There you go. I know that people are upset by it if you're a high-tech circle player. But yeah, win less. Where are the scrubs playing high-tech circle that are bringing down the win rate percentage? And that's where you've got the real issue. When a team is doing too well, you've got to bring the average players, the scrubs like myself, onto that team to draw down that win percentage so that GW doesn't realize how good they really are. And that's the problem. High-tech circle were a little bit of a complicated team because you couldn't just mindlessly charge something. You had to actually think about sightlines. And therefore, the scrubs like myself weren't playing them really because you had to think too much. And that's why they've always had quite a good win rate, because the scrubs didn't play them. That's the truth of it. There you go. So anyway, obviously go on to Warcom, check this stuff out. You can download it, check it all out yourself. It is just the same stuff we saw 2 weeks ago. However, I'll click the download here. Just in the standard way. So I'm going to say it again. I like this. This is great. This is how it should be. Nice. My God. Having just one document to read every change in is so good. Just have another thing here in the key downloads. Have like faction rules update log. Boom, done. Or balance patch update log. Just have everything listed in a big long sheet. And you know what? That should be done. There you go. Especially with the loss. No, I won't talk about BattleKit. Not yet. Not yet. We're doing that later. So there you go. Hey, if you watched to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. Truly the wholesome knows no bounds. The world of Glass Half Dead. And that is a present just to you. Thank you very much, everybody. Hey, in 2 weeks' time, I've got myself in 3 weeks? I don't even know anymore, mate. Jesus. I've got myself a team tournament. I've locked in Deathwatch because I wanted to take Wrecker Crew, but I have to paint one more model, and I'm not going to paint a model just to play a game. Fuck that. Goodbye.